Will the Senate please come to order? We'll take a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we have House bills for reference. We have H 817, an act relating to mental health literacy and peer-to-peer supports in school, introduced by Representative Burbico. It passed the House on March 24th of 2026. Listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 817, an act relating to mental health literacy and peer-to-peer support in schools.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill. It is referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare. We have H 928, an act relating to technical corrections to fish and wildlife statutes, introduced by the Committee on Environment. It passed the House on March 24th of 2026. Listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 928, an act relating to technical corrections to fish and wildlife statutes.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill. It's referred to the Committee on Natural Resources. We have H 932, an act relating to regulation of forestry under Act 250, introduced by the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. It passed the House on March 24th of 2026. Listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 932, an act relating to the regulation of forestry under Act 250.
We now have bills for third reading. Oh, that one I forgot to refer to. That one's referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy. Orders of the day. Now we have bills for third reading. We have S 323 for third reading. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Senator from Chittenden Central.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I do have an amendment. It is being passed out. This amendment speaks to my belief that rural farming is different than urban farming. While both valuable and important, they may need to be regulated slightly differently. So what this proposes to do is grant limited authority to Tier 1A and Tier 1B municipalities to set some regulations around what can be done in that municipality. Things like what types of animals. I think I made the mention yesterday that while an ostrich farm in Reigate may make sense, I don't think it makes sense in downtown Burlington. And so really just looking at not stopping urban farming, but allowing municipalities to set some limited regulation for what that looks like in their municipality and really just within our most densely populated town centers. So that is what the amendment does and my reasoning behind the amendment. Again, I'm deeply supportive of both types of farming. I just have experienced that they look a little different. And so that I hope the body will support the amendment. I did send the amendment to the chair of Senate Ag, but I did not have time to take it in because I got the language about 30 minutes before the floor. So for that, I apologize and would welcome taking some time or answering questions.
Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to clear up one of the questions that the senator from Chittenden had asked yesterday about the situation in Essex with the ducks and weed. That was the impetus for the ruling that actually struck down all of what we thought was sacred with farming. And so it's been kind of addressed. One of the answers probably wasn't as accurate as what it needs to be. That farm in Essex to this day, right now, would not be in the way that it was before this bill that we have in front of us to pass. That farm would need to have at least 1 acre of land and comply with the animals that were on our list. The ducks that were on that half acre of land would not comply. So I think if we could have a short recess so that we could look at this bill, we would appreciate that.
We'll take a brief recess. Will Senate please come to order? Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, our committee's met, and this amendment actually goes, undoes all the work of our signature piece of legislation in S 323. This is what the Supreme Court had dictated what was going to happen. And we were very, when the Supreme Court came out with the ruling that they had, we actually looked at their ruling, and the Supreme Court said if you believe that farming is exempt in the way that you believe it, you've got to put your language in there. We worked really hard to get that language in. Now, we had a lot of the stakeholder groups would want even more than what we were able to get into this bill. This actually brings in real problems for all the groups, all the advocates that we worked really, really hard for and made deals with. The NOFAs of the world are not going to be supportive of this bill. Rural Vermont is not going to be supportive of this bill. This just takes the bill that we have spent half the year on and brings it right back to the Supreme Court decision and really puts regulation on farms. I want to just be clear about what we've done. Any person that wants to grow food in any areas cannot be infringed upon. They have the right to grow food. What we have done, as far as in this situation in Essex, is that we've made them have to have one at least contiguous acre before they can to do anything as far as to have animals. We have the animals numbers in there and all of that. The committee was a strong 5-0-0 to vote against this amendment. And, you know, we have to trust the committee process. That's what we have to do. We worked really hard to get great compromises with everyone. And there was just a lot of groups in there. Every farming group was in there. And we've all come to a consensus of where we wanted to be. VLTC which is, I know, behind this amendment as well. They were in the room nodding their heads in the right direction at the same time. So I would really, to protect the committee process of all the hard work that we've done, ask the Senate body to respectfully not support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. This, I think, gives us a good opportunity just to think for a second about amendments and the process that they go through. Understandably, this one came out a little late to go through the committees, but it does handicap us in our understanding of what's going on, what's being impacted beyond the language of the amendment. So we are at the halfway point in our process. This is a miscellaneous bill. There are other opportunities to revisit this. So my suggestion, and this goes for the amendments that we'll see to 325 as well, my suggestion would be that in general, senators follow committee recommendations for what makes sense given the structure of the law as it stands and what's being proposed in the underlying bill. That being said, I think it would make sense if this were to be withdrawn and then reoffered at a later date in line with enough timing for the committees involved to be able to do serious work. We had advance notice of the amendments on 325, and we have, in the space of 24 hours, been able to do significant work in committee to accommodate the people putting forward those amendments. I think the same can happen here, but it can happen with the little amount of time we've been given. So I would be voting this amendment down because there are questions that can't be answered right now. But again, I think it would be perhaps an opportunity for the amendment to be withdrawn and offered at a more fruitful time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. I feel very strongly that we need to allow our municipalities to do some basic regulation, and I respect that there may need to be a little bit more work done to figure out how we fine-tune that in. So I will be withdrawing the amendment at this time. However, I do intend to continue working to bring our town centers, our urban centers, the ability to have basic regulation or to have different regulation at the state level, because I feel so strongly that urban farming is fundamentally different than farming in rural lands. So with that said, I will today withdraw the amendment, but I do intend to continue working on it. Thank you.
I thank, Mr. President, I thank the Senator from Chittenden, and I look forward to working with her moving ahead. Thank you, Mr. President.
The amendment is considered withdrawn without objection. Okay. Do we have any further amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
S 323, an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects.
Question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have one more handout for you with a little bit of data. Would just love to share this with the body.
Senator, you realize we're still on the miscellaneous ag bill?
I'm going to back that right up. There's a handout coming.
I thought we just heard it was a little late in the process for new amendments. Anyways, are we ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we've passed S 323. We now have S 325 for third reading. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Senator from Orange.
Yes, Mr. President. For those of you, you're going to pass out that amendment. Oh, it's in the calendar. I'm sorry. 1207. So let me just explain what this amendment does and why I have put it forward. Under the way the bill currently reads is until January 1 of 2030, housing in the community centers would be exempt from Act 250 if, in fact, the community has permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws and also has water and sewer services. If you look at our communities, and I just checked actually this morning on the website, there are 125 of our communities are what are called 1-acre towns, which means they do not have permanent zoning or subdivision bylaws. 137 of them do. So that means we are excluding about half of our communities from the provisions of this bill. And if we're serious about moving housing forward, then we really need to be looking at, and we believe that our community centers are where this housing should go, is we should include these 125 communities in that exemption. So what my amendment proposes is basically to scratch the reference to permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws. The amendment also allows for a slight increase in the area through the extension of water and sewer service. But that's basically what the amendment does. It allows us to include almost half of our communities in this endeavor to actually address our housing needs.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the committee did hear from the senator from Orange about this amendment and anticipating that there may be a substitute amendment which we hope may get at the issue that the senator has identified. However, wondering if we can take a brief recess.
We will take a brief recess. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was reference to a substitute amendment that is going to take a few minutes to draft, and I don't want to hold up action. So with that, I would move that we pass over S325 until later in the session and move directly to S328. Third reading.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that we pass over S325. Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
I just have a clarifying question. By later in the session, do we mean ideally today?
Absolutely today, but I was not given an exact time frame, and so I can't give an exact answer to the senator's question.
Sorry, so but it could be today?
To clarify, it will be under every circumstance today.
Okay,
I
thank you, thank
do
you.
not want to know when today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Motion on the floor is the senator from Chittenden has moved that we pass over S 325 for the meantime, and it will come back hopefully sometime today. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion has carried. We now have third reading of S 328. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee looked at some of the language that was in this bill pertaining to defining the area served by municipal water and sewer. We had an amendment recommendation that mainly addressed the length that was defined by the Senate Economic Development's proposal. Because if you have a length defined away from a water and sewer line, that length could just as well go 300 feet up a cliff. It could go 300 feet into the next town. It could go, it could not work just based on the topography of the place. So we had worked out some language that would eliminate that, but as I understand, there is more coming on this from Senate Economic Development. But just to explain a little bit further some of the amendments in here, we wanted to ensure that when we say it's an area served by municipal sewer and water infrastructure, that included fire districts. So often when we refer to municipalities, that does not, in some contexts, it includes fire districts because they are technically municipalities, but especially in this context, it often does not, and apparently had been interpreted as not including fire districts. But they do sometimes offer both water and sewer, and so we wanted to ensure that they were included in this, and so that is added to the language here to ensure that fire districts are included. And then we also were proposing a farm worker housing report. We did hear from Vermont Housing and Conservation Board that they were open to updating their farm worker housing report. We've been hearing a lot about, especially in the context of housing, the need for more farm worker and farmer housing, and so that is where this report came from. They were willing to update the report as the last time it was updated is 2021. That is it from me. Thank you.
Are there any amendments Excuse me? Was Senator from, hang on. Did you offer an amendment, Senator?
Yes. Yes.
And that amendment is in the calendar?
Yes.
Thank you. Question is, would the senator from Windsor like to speak?
What a great invitation. Thank you, Mr. President. I would. Senate Economic Development heard this thoughtful amendment. We support this amendment. However, I'm going to yield to the Senator Ron Hinsdale, who reported this section in the bill, but we supported this amendment and actually did additional work on it. Hence, you got a preamble to what is now the amendment. And I yield to Senator Ron Hinsdale.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe the substitute amendment is being handed out now, and I'll just say by way of process, we had a valuable exchange with the chair of your Natural Resources and Energy Committee. I don't know that the full committee has had the opportunity to read the language that's being presented on the floor, so they may need a moment to discuss that or inquire of, I suppose, myself as the presenter of this substitute amendment. But it was a further effort to try to be on the same page about our intent and we share that intent with your Natural Resources and Energy Committee. but we wanted to be even more careful about what is struck out and what is left in, Mr. President. And so with that, what you have on your desk might look a bit similar to what you see in the calendar, except we have unstruck Romanet I, I'm learning all kinds of new vocabulary today, because, Mr. President, ultimately, I think we share the same goal and intent, that a municipality or their plans and bylaws that would allow for a water or sewer connection for a plot that was going to be that was going to house a single-family home, not be able to discriminate against multifamily housing with that same water or sewer connection. So in that regard, we did not want to cut out all of Romanet I, but simply the part about state regulations or permits. And we did strike the state regulations or permit section because we are hoping that the more conversations we have between the two committees of jurisdiction, the closer we can get to harmonizing the Home Act and Act 181. So we are not telling our municipalities, you know, you can or can't do something here near your water and sewer, but the state is still telling you something different. So the goal here is to underscore our intent that you are constrained by capacity and you are constrained by service and capacity agreements, but you are not otherwise constrained in and should not otherwise make a discriminatory decision if it is more than a single family home that is seeking the connection. We appreciate the addition of fire districts. Wonderful. And Mr. President, the last section, I think, hopefully we'll start to be able to hear more about and talk more about with another committee of jurisdiction on housing, which is when we talk about farm worker housing or on-farm housing. You know, some of us have served on joint committees on the conditions and the environment for farm workers between economic development and your agriculture committee. But Mr. President, and I'm happy to defend this, I think it is incumbent upon us to start moving away from language that separates out farmers and farm workers when we're talking about housing conditions, because many people are somewhere in between considering themselves a landowning farmer and a farm worker. For those who do not own the land that they farm, they probably could also benefit from some attention to their housing needs and situation. And so the desire here is to replace farm worker more often with the words on-farm housing to recognize that there is not the same policy distinction between a farmer and farm worker often when we're talking about needing investment in safe, habitable, expanded housing. So that is the second amendment you see, is using different language instead of farm worker housing, but on-farm housing. With that, you'll see the amendment was sponsored by all of the members of our committee, and we hope that the body and your Natural Resources Committee receive this favorably.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee did not have an opportunity to chat about this substitute amendment, so hoping that we can have a brief recess.
We'll take a brief recess.
Pulling me.
Will the Senate please come to order? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Natural Resources and Energy Committee did take a look at this, and we're fine with it. Though it strikes the state regulations or permits part, that is pertaining to the map or the area that a municipality could identify as being a part of their, the area served by municipal water and sewer, but these projects would still need to get state permits as regular. So we were fine with it on a vote of, or a straw poll of 5-0. Thank you.
Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to speak specifically to the farm worker housing report. Senator Heffernan and I represent a constituent. His name is Ernie Caswell, and he is a huge advocate for improvements in farm worker housing across the state. Many of you have heard from him. And he works, and I believe is a co-owner of Champlain Orchards in Shoreham, and has won a ton of awards on doing work on farm worker housing. He asked at a legislative breakfast recently, asked us to try to find a way to update this report that was done in 2021 on farm worker housing and what has happened since then. There's been some money, thanks in large part to some ARPA funding and the work of our housing committee to get money for farm worker housing. But this continues to be an issue for orchards and farms across our state. And so just wanting to get this report updated, and VHCB was happy to do it, and just wanted to stand up and give kudos to him because he is relentless, and I think this will help move the ball forward still. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall S328 be amended as offered by the senator from Chittenden All right. I might get this right. Yeah, I think I can get it. Shall the bill be amended as offered by Senator from Washington as substituted? That's the next one? All right, then I don't have it. I don't know. Shall the amendment offered by the senator from Washington be substituted as offered by the senator from Chittenden Southeast? I think that's close enough. Are you ready for the question? Because I'm not going to ask it again. If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion's carried. And now, the question is, shall S328 be amended as substituted? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Up. can we go? Okay. Senator from Washington.
I would like to make a floor amendment on this bill. Now the proper time, you want to have this is a vote on the amendment. This is a vote on the amendment after we substitute it. Yeah.
Senator from Windsor.
May I ask a clarifying question of the senator from Washington?
You may. Senator from Washington's interrogated.
The middle senator from Washington.
Not
Not older, not younger, the middle.
If he so desires.
Thank you. Mr. President, is this an addition to the substitute amendment we just voted on, or is this your amendment which we considered this morning?
We voted on the substituting amendment, but we haven't voted on the amendment. So I'm going to wait for my amendment until we vote on this amendment.
Perfect. Thank you.
We need a few more amendments in the mix. Okay. The question is, shall the bill pass as, nope. It says, are you ready for the question?
Nice.
Okay. The question is, shall we approve the amendment as substituted? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment to this bill. I heard the pro tems, I don't know what the right word is, comments about amendments on the floor, but I think this is the exception that proves the rule, in that it is a very simple amendment that it does just delete one sentence from the bill. And I did have time to take it to the committee, so the committee had a chance to review it. Had I known it was going to be such a complicated amendment day, might not have done it. So it looks like the amendment, you won't notice by looking at the amendment what it does, because it strikes the section and replaces the section with everything except the sentence that is being removed. So if you happen to have, calendar today doesn't have the bill in it, it's third reading, but the calendar from yesterday on page 1048, section 4, this section, you could see that in the amendment, there's 3 parts of this report. This is, section 4 is just asking for a report from Ledge Council. In the, if you have your calendar, it had 4 different things. The amendment just reduces it to 3. The 4th that is being struck is one of the issues to be studied was allow the installation of electric vehicle supply equipment on land reserved for the exclusive use of a unit owner. There was complication. I really appreciated that the committee took this up and included in the study, but the study would need to be done if we dealt with all parking spaces that a unit owner might have access to. That's what they mean by on land reserved for. That means a parking spot. I hope to address this issue in the transportation bill in a much simpler way, that you're not dealing with all the parking spots, just on the limited common area. And I didn't want there to be confusion between the study language and what we'll be trying to do with the transportation bill. So I'm asking to strike 4, which is the part of the study that will be about electric vehicle supply equipment. This will also reduce the work of Ledge Council, if there's that much. Thank you.
Senator from Windsor.
Thank you. The committee appreciated the senator's amendment and the reduced workload for our incredibly able legislative council. We look forward to seeing what the transportation bill does. As you can hear, it is a complex issue and an interesting one. So we wish the Transportation Committee luck in sorting through the challenges that we faced and didn't have time to address. So we supported this 5-0. Thank you very much. And we would encourage the body to support it as well.
The body's over in the other chamber. This is the Senate. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the senator from Washington's comment, I don't believe this is an exception to what I said before, because it did go through the committee, so we do benefit from the committee's informed advice. So it proves the rule, but it is not an exception. Thank you.
You ready for the question? The question is, shall S 328 be amended as offered by the senator from Washington? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have amended S 328 as offered by the senator from Washington. Are we on to, shall it pass now? Are there any further amendments? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
S 328, an act relating to housing in common interest communities.
Now you've heard the third reading of the bill. The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we've passed S 328. Senator from Chittenden, where would you like to go?
At this point, we are still waiting for the substitute amendment related to 325. So if we could move back to,
Mr. President.
Senator.
we could move back to 278, top of the calendar. That would be great.
Senator, I've been informed that we may have the amendment. If we do, would you like to move straight to that?
I would rather move to S278 to be sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We will move to S278. We have on the calendar for action S278, introduced on January 21st of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Economic Development, which reports it's considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as set forth in today's calendar starting on page 1159, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the revenues of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports that the bill ought to pass when amended as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development. Affecting the appropriations of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which reports that is considered the bill and recommends that the amendment proposed by the Committee on Economic Development be amended as set forth in the calendar on page 1174, and that when amended, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S 278, an act relating to cannabis.
I recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Rom Hinsdale, for the report from the Committee on Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do wish I was having a more chill day as I report this bill, but that is all right. S 278 is the first economic development bill this body has advanced to support and strengthen Vermont's legal regulated cannabis market. To remind colleagues of the timeline, we legalized cannabis in 2020 with Act 164, seeded the Cannabis Control Board in April of 2021, and saw the first legal sales in October of 2022. In just a few years, Vermont's cannabis businesses have stepped up as good neighbors and as industry leaders, from our farms to our downtowns. This bill represents the next phase of that work, moving from legalization to coherence in the market, at a moment when federal shifts in the scheduling of cannabis may soon reshape the landscape. S 278 focuses on consistency, small business support, local control, and public health and safety. First, it makes targeted adjustments to THC packaging and transaction limits, raising the per package limit from 100 to 200 milligrams and aligning purchase and possession limits from 1 ounce to 2. These changes bring Vermont closer to other states while maintaining clear guardrails. Importantly, this does not change potency caps for flower, concentrate, or liquid, which remain under active discussion in the shared committees of jurisdiction. Second, it creates 2 tightly controlled pilot programs. an event permit pilot, up to 20 events per year with local approval, strict safety standards, and no co-location with alcohol sales. And a delivery permit pilot, up to 15 permits for small cultivators and manufacturers with limited hours, trained staff, and no resale. Both are time limited and subject to legislative and Cannabis Control Board regulation and review. Third, the bill strengthens municipal clarity, allowing towns to opt in by voter petition and to regulate time, place, and manner of cannabis sales, but not to fully prohibit voter-approved cannabis businesses. Fourth, it modernizes the business framework, updating licensing, allowing longer product registrations for low-risk items, enabling grower cooperatives, and expanding access to the Cannabis Business Development Fund. Fifth, it makes necessary tax and administrative updates and requires the Cannabis Control Board to report back to the legislature. Mr. President, this bill was informed by a broad group of stakeholders: Legislative Council, the Joint Fiscal Office, the Cannabis Control Board, the Department of Health, the Agency of Commerce, the Land Access and Opportunity Board, the banking sector, small farms, and cannabis businesses themselves, along with public health experts and educators. I want to take a moment to thank Legislative Council, particularly Tucker Anderson. This is highly technical work. It requires navigating a substance at the intersection of personal freedom, public health, the illicit market, and economic opportunity. That balance is not easy, and that care is shown in this bill. Mr. President, some appropriations tied to this work will be considered separately by appropriations, as is standard. But these appropriations point to something bigger: our responsibility to destigmatize a market we have already legalized and to repair harm to the victims of its overcriminalization. There is a real need to support organizations through the Cannabis Business Development Fund, as evidenced by the $1 million appropriation. Organizations like legal clinics that cannot use federal funding to support cannabis businesses, but could be critical to their success and growth. And through the Land Access and Opportunity Board, we hope to begin to meet, and they have in many ways arguably already exceeded, our goal of addressing harms from the war on drugs without forcing participation in the cannabis industry, but ensuring real access to economic opportunity. A recent Pew study reminds us that cannabis remains one of the most moralized and stigmatized issues in the world, seen as more immoral than pornography, gambling, and alcohol. That stigma shapes lives. And I've come to understand that in a way I didn't expect or even appreciate until I was crafting this bill. My father lived much of his life in the shadow of the law. Growing up, I thought that was just part of being an immigrant entrepreneur running an Irish pub, working hard, taking risks, trying to do novel things to achieve the American dream. Only after he passed did I learn more of the truth from a longtime friend who had acted as his attorney. As a teenager, coming back from India for his second year at UCLA, he had learned his classmates were curious about marijuana. At the time, cannabis often grew freely along the roadside in India. So he brought some back with him, a suitcase full, and he was understandably detained at the airport. He never told us that story. Instead, he carried it quietly for the rest of his life. What may have felt like a small, naive decision became something much heavier, a record, a shadow, a constant sense that legitimacy was just out of reach. He spent his life trying to build that legitimacy back. He never used alcohol or cannabis in my lifetime. He wasn't chasing substances. He was chasing belonging. He opened businesses, created spaces, brought people together. That's who he was. But he lived at the intersection of morality, marginalization, and the economy. And that intersection can be unforgiving. He died still working, still serving others, carrying a tray in his hand, still trying to find his place in the American dream. S278 is about making sure fewer people have to carry that kind of quiet burden, that fewer people get pushed into the shadows for something we now regulate, tax, and permit. It's about aligning our laws with our values and making sure dignity is part of the system we build. Mr. President, your Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs passed S278 by a vote of 5-0 and respectfully asks for the support of the Senate. Thank you.
I now recognize the senator from Chittenden Southeast, Senator Chittenden, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Finance Committee reviewed this bill, and we saw a few effects on state revenues, one being the event permits, which we estimated to generate a maximum of about $10,000, $5,000 of which to municipalities and $5,000 of which to the Cannabis Regulation Fund. We also anticipate that the delivery permits would add an additional $1,500 for a total of $6,500 to state revenues. We also wanted to recognize that changing the definition of household income for the purposes of calculating the property tax credit to include cannabis deductions would, all else equal, increase property tax credits paid to Vermont homeowners, which would reduce net homestead property tax collected by the Education Fund starting in fiscal year 2027. These changes would have a minimal impact on the Education and General Fund. And to that extent, your Senate Committee on Finance voted 6-0-1 to move this bill forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
I now recognize the senator from Washington District, Senator Perchlik, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Appropriations reviewed this for appropriations, and we have an amendment for that one appropriation, one section of appropriation. So this amendment is on page 1174 of today's calendar, and conveniently enough, right across the page, on page 1173, is section 28, which is our second instance of amendment, striking that section, which has the two appropriations that you'll see in section 28. So that's pretty straightforward. The first instance of amendment is a technical correction that Ledge Council brought to us, knowing we were making this amendment. If we could make those corrections, the sections referred to are the wrong sections. It refers to 7 and 8, but because of some changes, it's really sections 5 and 6. So that's just the first is a technical correction. And the second instance is our removal of the appropriations, or some are referring to it a gutting of the bill. The committee voted on this amendment 6-0-1.
The question is, shall the recommendation of the amendment of the Committee on Economic Development be amended as proposed by the Committee on Appropriations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the recommendation of amendment as proposed by the Committee on Appropriations. The question now is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended? Senator from... There's an amendment in there. 278. Okay. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any questions to ask. Our committee, Senate Health and Welfare, did look at the bill with some concern about, of course, access for those who are not supposed to or underage for having cannabis. And so we took testimony in particular on sections 5 and 6 related to events and distribution, and were reassured by the chair of the Cannabis Control Board that they're looking at this as well, and also concerned, and they're putting in place rules and procedures to ensure that access is held to the right level and the right people. Thank you, Mr. President. So overall, I think the committee does support the bill as it has been amended. Thank you.
Senator from Windsor for a report on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, this is the entire committee's amendment, and it was originally meant to be part of the bill. We ran out of time, as we all know. We had those deadlines to meet crossover. So we're actually offering it as an amendment so that it goes to the House in its originally intended fashion. I'm calling this our Scouts Amendment, our Be Prepared Amendment. Senate Economic Development and General Affairs, Housing and General Affairs, is channeling our inner scouts in this amendment. This addition to our bill is designed to prepare Vermont in case the federal government reschedules or changes enforcement policies about cannabis. You have all read about the president's executive orders and potential action. We really want to be well prepared. So it addresses policy changes concerning the interstate transfer of cannabis. Our objective in this is to protect Vermont's craft cannabis market in case of changes to federal law, which we have seen hints of from the president. This amendment authorizes the governor to enter into a regional or interstate compact designed to enable interstate commerce, which would honor each state's laws and regulations. This amendment is based on New Jersey, but there are 4 states that have actually been ahead of us on preparing for this moment: New Jersey, California, Washington, and Oregon. But this amendment is based on New Jersey's law, which has the same authorization currently embedded in its statutes. So this bill, 4 points. The compact agreements may be formed by any state that has regulatory standards that meet or exceed Vermont's regulatory standards. Second, agreements allow licenses in each state to acquire licenses in other partner states. That's if you're part of this compact. Third, agreements are contingent on 4 potential changes in federal enforcement, and I will read them. 1, when federal law is amended to allow for interstate transfer of cannabis. 2, when federal law is enacted that prohibits the expenditure of federal funds on enforcement activities concerning the interstate transfer of cannabis. 3, when the U.S. DOJ, Department of Justice, issues an opinion or memorandum allowing or tolerating the interstate transfer of cannabis. And last, when the Vermont Attorney General issues a written opinion that the implementation of an agreement will not result in significant legal risk to Vermont, to the state, to our state. And finally, the Cannabis Control Board has rulemaking authority to govern admission of licenses under this compact. As the Senate can see, all of our committee members have sponsored this amendment, which better prepares Vermont for changes to the federal law, and we ask for the Senate's support. Thank you very much.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall the recommendation of amendment of the Committee on Economic Development be further amended as recommended by Senator Clarkson and others? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the recommendation of amendment of the Committee on Economic Development. The question now is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended? Are you? Okay. Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I interrogate the reporter of the of S278, please?
The reporter is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just curious about what the problem was to solve the allowing for 1 ounce to 2 ounces. What was the reasoning for raising that allowance of the extra ounce?
Thank you, Mr. President. Somewhere in here, I have all my different limits for the states around us. Our overall effort with the bill was to harmonize more of our purchasing policies with the states around us. At this point, however we feel about it, an individual could go into multiple cannabis retailers and purchase over an ounce of cannabis. That it would be harder for them to follow all of our other laws if they purchased more than that ounce. But at the same time, we simply have no way of overseeing that. States around us have a higher purchase limit, and we heard reports from our cannabis retailers that they are advertising in our state, just come across the lake, And you can, they're not advertising that you can purchase more, but they are taking business away from our cannabis retailers because many folks would like to be able to purchase a higher amount in one shopping opportunity. We heard a little bit about the stigma, and most folks aren't looking to go into multiple stores. At the same time, Mr. President, this is a consumer choice matter. This is like buying a 6-pack of beer or a 12-pack or a 30-rack. People don't, on average, tend to consume more simply because they're buying more. They just don't have to make as many trips to a retailer.
Thank you, Mr. President. My second question is, as far as raising the level of the THC in the packaging, did we raise the levels of what the product in itself that you could consume, or is it just raising that you could have more THC in the packaging?
Thank you for that clarifying question, Mr. President, because there are a lot of different caps and limits and thresholds, and we want to make sure that we are staying aligned on our public health conversations. And so we have not changed any potency caps, which would be per a consumable item. So we have not changed the potency of the actual flower that could be produced. So growers do have to, in some cases, dilute the flower so that it doesn't reach above a certain THC potency. We have not also touched the potency of solids or concentrates. What this does do is allow, again, a consumer choice around packaging. Many retail products are offered in multiple types of packaging, so you might still have you would still have a regulated amount per let's say solid gummy that's in a package, but you might have twice as many of those gummies in one package, to use an example.
Thank you, Mr. President. My final question is, looking on the bill in itself, and I didn't see it on the calendar, the bill also proposes to lower the cannabis excise tax from 14% to 10%. Did that survive? Did that survive into the final bill?
That did not survive, Mr. President. I think it's a conversation we should have on an ongoing basis with our committees of jurisdiction, including finance. It's something we did over time in the spirits industry, recognizing that we started with a very high tax, not knowing how much commercial activity we would have and how much we would need the resources to regulate. But over time, we hope to share that jurisdiction with finance as an economic discussion of our prices potentially being higher than in other states. Mr. President, if I didn't emphasize it fully, many states, in addition to the 12 that have already legalized the recreational sale of marijuana, are now looking at legalizing the sale of recreational marijuana. The conversation is happening, for example, in the New Hampshire Assembly, where the conversation is happening around those products being available in the existing liquor retail outlets. I think many of us are more familiar with our experience around spirits and other types of alcohol and how we try to make sure our regulations support our craft producers in an environment where they are now potentially in the future competing with other states' markets.
I thank the reporter and thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Caledonia, I understand you have an amendment to offer.
I do, Mr. President. While they're handing out, I'm on, if you want to follow on the calendar, I'm looking at page 1163, section 6, sub A. In the delivery permitting section of this bill, it allows for a delivery permit to be obtained by a tier 1 or tier 2 cultivator or manufacturer. And what this bill does is it says that that tier 1 or tier 2 cultivator or manufacturer, to be eligible for the delivery permit, cannot also have a retail license. And the reason for that is that many of our tier 1 and tier 2 cultivators and manufacturers do also have a retail license. They have access to the retail marketplace and they sell their products at that retail marketplace. And they actually have the capability to deliver to people that are medicinal users of cannabis. What this amendment would do is it would say those delivery permit fees are only for the tier 1 and tier 2s that do not have a retail license, which means that effectively right now under current law, Mr. President, they do not have access to the retail market. They only have access to the wholesale market. And so this would ensure that those 15 annual permits, as is laid out in the bill, would only be available to those tier 1 and tier 2s that do not have a retail license. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee, your Committee on Economic Development heard from the senator from Caledonia on this amendment. We had some back and forth because we still recognize that it will take some time for a tier 1 or 2 cultivator or manufacturer to have the safety mechanisms and point of sale operation in place to receive what will be a stringent delivery license, but that it was our intent to focus this delivery license pilot opportunity on both the tier 1 and 2 cultivators and manufacturers who don't have an outlet for their own product. Retailers are not necessarily beholden to just sell local cannabis products. We also recognize that this was largely so that we could help provide legal access to the market in areas that do not currently have access to a retailer in their proximity. So on a vote, on a straw poll of 5-0, we support this amendment.
So the question is, shall the bill as offered by the Committee on Economic Development as amended be further amended as offered by the senator from Caledonia? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. The question now is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you've ordered third reading of S-278. We will now go back to third readings. I think we have the amendment. Senator from Chittenden? Is it your hope that we would go back to third reading?
It is, of 325.
Not always. We now have third reading of S-325. Are there amendments prior to third reading? There's a pending question, which is? Okay, yes. So the pending question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the senator from Orange? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I understand it, there is going to be a substitute amendment, and would love to.
I thought we said we had it. We have it. Senator from Chittenden, would you like to ask a question? Oh, you're doing the amendment?
Mr. President, I would like to present a substitute amendment to the,
Excellent. Senator from Chittenden. It is being passed out as we speak.
thank you, Mr. President. I don't have my glasses on, so I just wasn't sure if where you were in the process. Members are receiving a substitute amendment to the amendment from the senator from Orange. And it has a significant amount of language in it. First, before I forget to do anything, I would like to thank Ellen Jakowski from Legislative Council. She had a very busy morning working on amendments and substitute amendments and trying to match the intent of a lot of different stakeholders, and we greatly appreciate that. This amendment falls within the section of Act 181 that creates interim exemptions for certain numbers of units of housing in certain designated areas. Mr. President, as you may have heard from the senator from Orange, there is an exemption for a housing exemption for village centers that have permanent zoning and bylaws. I would remind the chamber of something I said yesterday, I believe, which is that every municipality, we hope, should have some ability to access all of our tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And in that spirit, we ought to recognize that we have village centers where there are no permanent zoning or bylaws, but they are either trying to receive grants to advance permanent zoning and bylaws, or they are communities that are wary of permanent zoning and bylaws, and we have more work to do with them to make sure that they know there are benefits that might come along with getting that further designation. So in the interim, Mr. President, offered in the spirit of collaboration with the senator from Orange, this particular sentence would allow for up to 50 units of housing that fall under our priority housing project category. Those are projects that are either deemed affordable by having 20% affordable housing, or they're deemed a mixed-use development, what we commonly see and want to promote in our village centers and our downtowns, of having some commercial component and housing above or adjacent. So with that, Mr. President, this otherwise follows the exact language of a village center and the quarter mile around it that currently has access to up to 50 units of any type of housing. And this amendment allows for priority housing projects to be exempt from Act 250 until 2030. And so, Mr. President, I was able to present this to members of your Natural Resources Committee, but I will allow them to determine whether or not they find it favorable.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did get a chance to chat about this in general, though we didn't get a chance to chat about it once we saw the language. So I'd like to take a 2-minute recess just now that we have the language to confirm. Thank you.
We'll take a 2-minute recess. Will Senate please come to order? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Natural Resources and Energy Committee looked at this, and on a straw poll, you're fine with it at 5-0. But I just want to say, too, that I'm very grateful that the senator from Orange came to us with this amendment early. We had a chance to understand the concerns. We had a chance to work through it. And I just want to say that we're trying to approach this in a spirit of collaboration. We all know that we need more housing. We want to do it in a smart and thoughtful way. And it seemed to us that there was some way to accomplish this. And it does seem to us that this is a fine way to get at the problem that the senator is trying to solve. And so appreciate his efforts, and just want to make sure that we're communicating that we are also in problem-solving mode towards the good of more housing in Vermont. Thank you.
Senator from Orange.
Mr. President, I thank the senator from Washington and the senator from Chittenden for working with me on finding what I believe is a good solution. So I thank them, and I support the amendment to my amendment.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. This does look like an improvement. Overall, I will just identify on line 6, I believe the word of should be in front of 50 units as a Scrivener's error. Could I recommend that proposal?
We will read that as a Scrivener's error. I can't believe the English professor didn't pick that one up. Senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President, I currently don't see the Scrivener's error, but I'm happy to.
Perhaps your seatmate can help you out. Perhaps you should get your glasses.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand.
Point of order.
Are we ready for the question? Question is, shall the amendment as offered by the senator from Orange be substituted by the amendment offered by the senator from Chittenden Southeast? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And the motion has carried. Now we are back to, now we are to shall the bill be amended as substituted? Are you ready for the question? We just approved the substitute amendment for the first amendment. So now if we accept the substitute amendment, we have to put it on the bill. That's what this vote is for. Senator from Bennington.
Mr. President, I'm fine with this amendment. I was one of the 5 on the Natural Resources Committee that said it's okay. But I do want to point out just for the body, for thinking about this in the future, because it's relevant to this, one of the intents of the bill, combined with municipal planning grants, is to get more towns to pass municipal planning and zoning, and then therefore earn the benefits that come with that. That's a major part of the construct, and we're sort of stepping away from that for these 3 years by in some ways doing the opposite, almost rewarding towns that haven't done that. On the other hand, when it comes to priority housing projects, the reality is they're going to tend to get built in places that make sense and have the right construct for it. So again, in that spirit that our chair referenced of wanting to accommodate and move the whole body as much as we can together, I'm going along with this amendment, despite the fact that it's, at least just for future reference, and as we think about this going forward, part of the intent here is to get towns to pass and to get on board with planning and zoning, and then derive the benefits that come with Act 181. And so, having just made that case for the future, I'm
on board for this.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to explain why I voted against the amendment, and I do understand the spirit, and I want all communities to be able to produce housing. I just get concerned when we're potentially establishing a situation that just doesn't make sense. These buildings will need water and sewer. It says within a quarter mile of water and sewer, and that's not, it's very different. And I just don't want communities to think that they can do something and spend time in that effort and realize later on that it's not going to be the way that they think it is. But I do understand, and most of these, hopefully all of these, if they are initiated, would be initiated by one of our agencies or entities that does a lot of this development. So they would be able to explain the pros and cons of going forward. Thank you.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is an important time to simply remind the body that where there is a village center without permanent planning and zoning, they would fall under Tier 2. And in Tier 2, we have an Act 250 rule that I previously mentioned called 1055. So in a village center now that is under Tier 2, they could build up to 9 units of any type of housing, but then the developer that built those 9 units in that village center or area around it, or really anywhere in the state, has to go 5 miles away or wait 5 years to not trigger Act 250. We have a lot of small developers and smaller population centers where getting above those 9 units, but probably well under 50 units, really allows them to meet our housing goals that we've asked every municipality to meet, as well as simply allow them to create clustered affordable projects, which I think meets a lot of our goals at once. So just a reminder that for some of us, the 1055 rule also creates a lot of need for capacity and potentially poor planning without giving those same communities the option to build more. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall the bill be amended as substituted? If you're ready for the question, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it, and we have amended the bill as substituted. The question now is, shall the bill pass? Yes, I know. Senator from... Gotcha. Yes, Senator from Chittenden North has an amendment that is being handed out.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators will notice that I have an amendment in the calendar. I will not be substituting. I will not be talking about that. I need to keep my focus on the amendment that I have provided that's getting passed out here. So I'm offering this new amendment. It speaks to the same underlying amendment that's in the calendar, but after having a good conversation in Senate Natural Resources this morning, this amendment here deals with Tier 1B areas. And currently, Tier 1B is allowing for 50 units or less to be built on tracts of land 10 acres or less. And over the past several days and weeks, I've heard different areas about having tracts of land that are, above this 10-acre threshold. But when you dig into the details on those tracts of land is what makes Vermont great. We don't have perfectly flat 10-acre parcels square to utilize the whole area. We have parcels that you can develop on a portion of them, and you may have a low-lying area. If you look out the window behind us here, it goes straight up a cliffside. That would all be encompassed in the size of the parcel that's not really developable, but goes against your 10 acres. So what this amendment does is, it's a little longer, but really the only change is gonna be on the second page. It's gonna be dealing with the interim exemptions, where it is striking out the 10-acre rule in Tier 1B. So you can still only develop up to 50 units, and the parcel size is struck for the 10 acres. So it can be any size parcel, and that is like that of Tier 1A. Tier 1A, you can build up to 75 units. There's no maximum parcel size. So this bill is only pertaining to the interim exemptions until 2030. And this will allow for development to occur in places where we want it to occur. There's already maybe public water, public sewer, soils that can be used for wastewater. There's examples that I have seen near my district that are surrounded by development. There's many homes, there's many commercial development around it, entertainment, and it's what I like about this bill with the 1B is that previously it was a single family home on over 10 acres of property in this very dense zoning area of the town. And now a developer is looking to develop this into more housing that we've all talked about if we need more housing in the state. But without this change, it would trigger them into an Act 250 permit. So in this interim period, this amendment will strike the 10 acres and allow the project to move forward, assuming local town ordinances are met and DRB approval. But I think this amendment was a fun one for me because as you'll see in the calendar, it's a little different. And after a good conversation in committee where the good work is done, we came to this consensus. I'm not sure if the committee has seen the exact wording of this amendment, so I will let them speak, but I appreciate the work that was done this morning, and I ask for the Senate's support. Thank you.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Natural Resource and Energy Committee did hear from the senator from Chittenden North about this amendment, and we were able to work together with the senator through that dialogue to come to a place where we felt comfortable. This is not the amendment that we started with from the senator, and just really grateful for the collaboration and again trying to move towards again more housing for Vermont, and trying to find the place where we could find some common ground. And I think we were able to do that. And so we are on a straw poll of 5-0 supportive of this amendment. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall S 325 be further amended as offered by the senator from Chittenden North? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have further amended S 325. Are there any further amendments? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. As it is being handed out, we are asking, or I am asking to extend some dates. But before I do this, I would like to read from an actual Vermonter.
You have to ask permission to read something.
Mr. President, may I?
Without objection.
Thank you. I rise with an amendment and with a Vermont story. Why this amendment can help. A family born and raised here scraped for 27 years to buy 250 acres of forest in Bridgewater. They built a 16 by 16 A-frame with their own hands. They paid their taxes. They followed a forest plan. They opened their land to others. They never posted it. They protected it, not for profit, but for a legacy. They placed it in an irrevocable trust. So their children and their grandchildren, working Vermonters, might have a place to live, to build a modest cabin, to work the lands, to stay rooted here in Vermont. And now, Act 181 threatens to make this impossible. Not because the family wants to overdevelop, not because they want to cash out, but because they may no longer be able to do the simplest, most meaningful thing, pass along this opportunity. Meanwhile, just next door, a very different story unfolds. A well-funded out-of-state buyer built a mountaintop estate. Miles-long road, thousands of square feet of acres cleared. Would Act 181 have stopped them? No, because they're wealthy and can navigate the complexity. Wealth can absorb cost better than the average Vermonter. So we must ask ourselves plainly, are we protecting Vermont's lands or pricing Vermonters out of it? Because, as written, Act 181 risks doing exactly that. It creates barriers that working families cannot overcome, while leaving the door open for those who can afford the process. That is not conservation, that is exclusion. We all agree Vermont's natural resource and ecosystem must be protected. But the people who have done that quietly, faithfully, for generations should not be the ones to be punished here. There's a better path, possibly exempting transfer across generations of Vermonters, allowing reasonable number of housing based on acreage. And above all, slow this down. Bring landowners into the conservation hold rule hearings to ensure transparency. I think we heard that loud and clear the other day. Because once we sever Vermonters from their land, we do not easily restore that bond. This is not about policy here. This is about identity. It is about whether the next generation can afford to work, to live on the lands their families fought so hard to keep. Act 181, as written, risks breaking that chain. So I'm asking you to vote for this amendment. Vote for the working Vermonters who have already given so much to the state through generations. This amendment will give us more time to do the right thing. I ask the body to support this amendment.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I am not mistaken, this is an amendment that the senator brought to us 2 days ago. Is that? I guess is a question.
Mr. President.
I would like to interrogate the presenter of the amendment.
The presenter is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, it was at the very end. The beginning of that amendment was asking to repeal Tier 3, and we had that yesterday. And then this was just to push out the times for Tier 3.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to comment, or I thank the senator. I just want to make it clear, it was unclear to me that this amendment was coming today based on how everything played out over the last couple of days. We did talk briefly about this in committee, but we did not take a straw poll, and I would love to call a 2-minute recess to chat with the committee. Thank you.
We will take a brief recess. Will the Senate please come to order?
1:30, one or the other.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a good conversation with the Natural Resources and Energy Committee and are recommending that we do not pass this amendment on a straw poll of 3 against, 2 for the amendment. And the reason being is that we did deliberate work about the timing of the delay at this point. We do want to include the voice of more Vermonters. We want to be able to receive more feedback. We think that this accomplishes it, and the longer we push it out, the more uncertainty it might actually sow. And we think that there may be some opportunity to think more critically about the rollout of the Tier 3 implementation, but that's something that we could talk further about it at another time and not try to adjust on the fly. And so we recommend not moving forward with this amendment. Thank you.
Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be voting no on this amendment. And I wanted to describe a concern that I have that I think has been starting to percolate in this discussion that we should talk about. And that's the description of certain native Vermonters, long-standing property owners, families in rural communities, and an almost hierarchical explanation of the value of that, and then the comparison of that to environmental policy and land use regulation. That there's this concept that we are oppressing, that I even heard that word, oppressing folks by asking them to be a part of a regulatory process that looks at specific criteria to make sure that our communities are having democratic conversations about land use. That to me is not oppression. That to me, and I see you're smirking and you're rolling your eyes, Mr. President.
I did not roll my eyes, thank you, and I don't think you are supposed to refer to the president. I did smile, and thank you very much. Please be in order.
I think that the way that we have chosen to have this conversation has unfortunately created this black and white picture rather than the gray of what we are trying to do with our land use planning. Because the process that we laid out in Act 181, a multi-year process, was to have those conversations about the gray area, the area that we want as communities to preserve in Tier 3. Those beautiful waterfalls, the places in Bridgewater where we have seen bobcat, where we have on Chattagee Way, if we're going to reference Bridgewater, where we have connected communities of ecosystems that a home, that a development would disrupt for all future generations. So if we're going to discuss what it means to protect the vitality of Vermont for future generations, whether they be generations of my children who will be 14th generation Vermonters, or whether they be generations of children who it's their first time being Vermonters in their family. Every single one of those individuals deserves access, deserves protection and preservation of vital resources like our ecosystems, like our water quality. And all of that is why generations ago, when Senator Dick McCormick was still in the Senate, we worked on Act 250 to create a process where land is being used in a way that isn't just to the benefit of one single property owner or one single business, but rather to identify the needs of a community. And I hope that when we continue to have this conversation, that we do not place a superiority on Vermonters who have been here, like myself, 14 generations of family, but rather on those future generations, regardless of their status of familial line in our state, because future generations may not have the same ecosystems that we have access to because of development. So we have to balance that in the same way that we had with previous generations on land use policy. So I hope that we can vote no on this amendment and support the hard work of Senate Natural Resources, who diligently crafted a bill, S325, to extend where we needed to, and hold steady where we had to. So I appreciate the senator from Washington County and her diligence to collaborate and compromise, and I respect why the committee chose not to do so on this amendment, and I will be joining them with a no vote.
Senator from Essex.
I had planned to remain quiet today. I thought I spoke quite a bit yesterday, but I just have to add some comment to what I just heard. Unfortunately, and it's very, very unfortunate that there's folks that don't realize that there are fundamental rights within the Constitution of the United States, Vermont, about land ownership in the state of Vermont. And that the land that is owned by people indeed is their land. And it is their rights to do as to what they want to do. And I think that we're going to be to a point before too long to where we can see some constitutional challenges in this state as far as the overreach of the legislature of what they do with private landowners. The Constitution is very clear in the state of Vermont about the protections of private landowners. And I think that's one clear thing that we need to really understand in this chamber is that it is not this chamber's land. It is the land of the people who have owned it for decades or 2 minutes. But it is their land, and it is their land to do with what they want to do with it, as long as they're not destroying it in such a way that would bother more than one person. So land ownership in Vermont is in the Constitution. Private land ownership is very well protected. And I think that if we keep on going, we will see some very strong challenges to the Supreme Court about how folks do believe that land that they do not own belongs to them when it does belong to the person that holds the deed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Madison.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you for the comments that's been made on both sides. Keywords that were used, I heard, was us and our. I ask you this, who paid the taxes all these years? For who, and who preserved it for years and without the state's help to allow this wildlife that is there now to continue to be now? Senator from Essex said it quite well. There is a place for Vermont to have say in what happens to land if it's going to be developed. But private land ownership is one of the key foundations of this Vermont state. It is almost, that's why it's so hard to post your land in Vermont, because they did not want nobility and leadership to tell you what to do with their land. It is such a pain to try to post your land, as we're going to see and deal with here in the near future. This really is about the rights of landowners. Good stewards that are already being good stewards to their land. All this amendment is doing is saying, let's take a little more time to make sure we get it right. That's all this amendment's doing. And we've heard over and over again, we need more time. I'm on the education committee. They're telling me to pump the brakes all the time. We're moving way too fast. Well, I'm saying the same thing here. Let's put the brakes on for a little bit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Caledonia.
I do think we've hit the crux of the matter here. Whether somebody's owned their land for a matter of years or generational ownership that goes back for centuries. It's not their neighbor's land. It's not their community's land. It's not the state's land, literally or figuratively.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the conversation about the amendment, which the senator from Madison has offered to the body, we've heard a lot of passion, but what I haven't heard yet from the senator Madison, and if I can request to interrogate the presenter of the amendment.
The senator is interrogated.
I'd like to offer the senator an opportunity to explain the logic for the date extension before we roll over this amendment and dismiss it on party lines. If I could offer that opportunity to the senator from Madison.
to again explain why he's proposing date extensions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. If it was up to me, I probably would have extended long. We picked these dates because they're more realistic. It's not asking for 5 more years. One is only asking for 1 more year extension for rulemaking, and another for 2 for implement. My goodness. For it to be enacted. That's basically how it came up for the dates. There was no other than to give a little more time and to get more feedback from our constituents. Because if there's one thing we need is to hear from more Vermonters to make the right decisions. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the senator, and I thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to articulate that some of the reasons that the senator from Addison identified, giving more time to hear from more Vermonters is exactly why we delayed it as we did, and we were intentional about the date that we picked. And so I just would like to say that there will even be more time to decide is more time needed should we come to that conclusion at a later point. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the senator from Addison? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Senator, I can't exactly tell what you're doing from Chittenden. Are you just coming to your seat?
Slowly sitting down.
Okay. Let's try that again then. Now that the senator beside you quickly sat down. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Division.
Division has been called for. Will all in favor please rise? Please be seated. All opposed, please rise. You may be seated. Got it. Those in favor, 13. Those opposed, 17. The amendment has failed. Are there any further amendments before third reading? Please listen to the third reading.
S 325, an act relating to studying the creation of model bylaws.
Question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. In these discussions about land use and Act 250, I always feel after an hour or two that I'm living in an odd world where up is down and down is up. I view 325, 181, and the bills that came before that over the last several years as loosening Act 250. And I think if you look overall, the cumulative effect from 4 or 5 years ago to now, there has been what I would consider a historic loosening of the regulations of Act 250 in honor of the crisis in housing. So I tend to forget that when we come on the floor and we hear that people's rights are being stripped, they're being forced from their land, there's lamentations in the hills. This is what we had been begged for years from our friends across the aisle. That is loosening where Act 250 was needed, preferring housing in certain areas, And in the case of 325, extending those deadlines even further, allowing more housing over the next 3 or 4 years. So I will go home today, Mr. President, feeling proud of the work we've done to loosen Act 250 in a wise way to allow more housing for the people who need it. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Essex.
And I do mean no disrespect to the pro tem for speaking after. I understand how the rules go. But I hear the pro tem's comments about loosening Act 250. The problem with this law and all the bills that have come forward is it's not doing that. It's doing it in areas that the majority wants it to happen, but it's not doing it where the rural population understands. In fact, we are looking to expand more regulation into the rural areas ever and more of the state than it ever has been with laws that were originally intended to restrict commercial growth. And now what we have done is we've expanded Act 250 into the people just building homes or people just wanting to do with whatever they want to do with their land. And that is where the rub is. That's where the rub is. If you want to reduce Act 250 and build more housing, do it in the areas that everyone can understand. But to add more regulation to all the rest of the state because you want to build houses in certain areas is where the rub is. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall the bill pass? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we've passed S 325. Do it. Are we to proceed down through the calendar, Senator?
Yes, Mr. President. So S64 would be what I believe will be our last bill of the day.
We have on the calendar for action S64, introduced on February 11th of 2025. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass. The bill was then committed to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports that the bill ought to pass. Affecting the finances of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports that the bill ought to pass. Affecting appropriations of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which reports the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S64, an act relating to amendments to the scope of practice for optometrists.
Recognize the senator from Rutland for the report of the Committee on Government Operations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quite often, folks both inside and outside this chamber speak about the passing of bills as the making of sausage. I think based on what we've done earlier today, you could make a case for having a big sausage earlier today. And I don't mean that in any negative way. Perhaps I failed at humor. S64 does fit that description in many ways. The bill's provisions have been contemplated for more than half a decade. The Office of Professional Regulation inside the Secretary of State's office concluded in a 2020 report that the office did not support the expansion of scope of practice for optometrists because they could not obtain enough information from optometry colleges. Following additional review, OPR changed its stance, and in a subsequent report in 2023, found that, quote, with appropriate training and oversight, optometrists could indeed safely perform advanced procedures. The updated OPR position supports creating an advanced procedure specifically requiring training and ongoing reporting of adverse outcomes to OPR. Today, OPR is 100% in agreement with this bill. In fact, they drafted the bill based on that 2023 Sunrise report. So S64 was introduced last year in February, I believe it was the 11th, if my research is correct, and then referred to the Senate Health and Welfare Committee 3 days later, the bill was committed to the Senate Government Operations Committee, and the committee took weeks of testimony and became convinced that given the requisite education and, more importantly, continuing education and training, the committee could support the bill. I would note, Mr. President, that the vote in Senate Government Operations was 5-0-0, and that it was a tri-partisan vote. We would ask for the Senate to move the bill forward. The bill was then recommended to the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, who took additional testimony this year. And my understanding is the senator from Orleans will be reporting the results of their work with a section-by-section look at the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from Orleans, Senator Morley, for the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a long bill. You folks have seen this around for a long time, as the senator from Rutland said. And this is one of those bills where there's not a lot of middle ground. You either agree this way or you agree that way. And so there was a lot of discussion about that. So as you heard, the Office of Professional Regulation submitted a detailed sunrise report 2023 after the 2020 report didn't support expansion. There was enough information on education and training. The 2023 OPI report was performed at this body's request. They also drafted the language, as you heard, in S64. Eyeballs have always been a contentious topic here in this State House. Both optometrists and ophthalmologists work very closely today and will continue to do so whether this bill passes or doesn't pass. OPR is the regulating body that reviews all scope and expansions for more than 50 professions. This chamber has always had faith in OPR's recommendations as the regulators of professions. You may rest assured education, training, continuing education, and patient safety have all been considered in this bill. With the additional education training requirements in this bill, Vermont will have the most highly skilled optometrists in the country, exactly what Vermont needs. Bipartisanship support, and with over half of this chamber signed on to this bill. S64 is a measured, patient-focused proposal that builds on work this legislature has considered over multiple sessions. At its core, this bill is about access to care, timely treatment, recruiting doctors to Vermont, and making practical use of Vermont's existing healthcare workforce, particularly in rural and underserved communities. Improving rural healthcare in Vermont is a priority this session. Currently, optometrists complete 4 years of postgraduate doctoral education, extensive classroom instructions in ocular disease and pharmacology, and thousands of hours of supervised clinical training, diagnosing and managing eye conditions in real-world settings. Their competency is further reinforced through national board examinations, state licensure requirements, and ongoing continuing medical education. This bill does not create a new profession. It does not lower standards or eliminate oversight. It relies on existing licensure, OPR, and the Board of Optometry Regulation to define education and training requirements and well-established standards of care. It does allow optometrists who choose to take and pass additional boards, perform both proctored clinical procedures and hours, and attend additional continuing education beyond their current requirements of licensure to obtain an advanced therapeutic procedure specialty license. It's allowing them to perform certain laser and minor surgical eye procedures currently outside Vermont's optometric scope of practice. S64 simply updates Vermont law to reflect modern optometric clinical practice in the way primary eye care is delivered safely in many other states today. This legislation also aligns with broader policy goals this body has repeatedly supported: improving access to care close to home, reducing unnecessary referrals and delays, supporting team-based care, and making the healthcare work more efficiently for patients. Vermont faces persistent challenges accessing eye care, especially as our population ages and chronic eye conditions become more prevalent. Long wait times, geographic barriers, and provider shortages can delay diagnosis and treatment, sometimes with permanent consequences. S64 is designed to address those challenges by allowing optometrists who are already licensed, regulated, and extensively trained to practice at the top of their education and competency. Bottom line, S64 means faster access to treatment, fewer trips out of the community, reduced healthcare costs, an attractive scope of practice for doctors who are judging Vermont versus other states, and a healthcare system that uses its trained professionals effectively while maintaining patient safety as the top priority. So I just want to go over a couple of those things. S64 expands optometric scope of practice for licensees with the required education, training, experience, and testing. It creates an advanced therapeutic practice procedures, specialty credential, and identifies special surgical laser and injection procedures the specialty holder may perform, as well as procedures optometrists are prohibited from performing is in this bill. It also clarifies and refines the duties of optometrists. The 2023 revised report found that optometry students practice standard optometric procedures on live patients, but for these advanced procedures, the majority of schools provide skills trainings primarily in lab simulations or on models. We heard a lot of that testimony, and it was a concern. Based on its findings, OPR recommended additional hands-on skills training on human subjects to sufficiently complete advanced procedures, training, and ensure public safety. With the additional training and demonstrated competency through a written examination and a skills examination, OPR determined optometrists can safely perform the advanced surgical laser injection procedures in S64. OPR's revised report on expanding optometry scope of practice recommends allowing the expansion with additional safeguards. S64 includes following. Only the named procedures are permitted in this bill. Prohibited procedures are explicitly listed in this bill. Optometrists who graduated prior to 2019 must complete an approved 32-hour postgraduate course on the advanced procedures. All optometrists who pursue this specialty must pay a $100 specialty fee and complete a minimum of 8 hours of in-person clinical training and experience on live human patients performing specific procedures under the supervision of a qualified proctor. Specialty applicants must pass national written and clinical examinations, including skills examinations. And once credentialed, the specialty holder must report to the board any adverse events related to the advanced procedure within 30 days. Not all 168 Vermont licensed optometrists will elect to do the training and testing necessary to obtain the advanced procedure specialty. Optometrists with the specialty will choose whether they want to offer any, some, or all the advanced procedures in their practice. And like in all other regulated professions, optometrists with the specialty will have an independent obligation to exercise professional judgment in the performance of licensed activities and to stay within their competent and safe scope of practice. This means that an optometrist who has not maintained competency in an advanced procedure is not permitted to perform it, even though they have the specialty. Any member of the public, including patients, their relatives or friends, doctors, optometrists, medical staff, or anyone else, can make a complaint to OPR. In addition, S64 requires optometrists to report an adverse event related to advanced procedures, as I stated earlier, within 30 days. There were 14 states, there are now 15 states, Kansas being the latest, currently to allow an expanded scope of practice for optometrists that is substantially similar to the scope allowed in this bill and have less stringent requirements. Vermont has 33 ophthalmologists and 168 optometrists, for your information. Senate Health and Welfare heard testimony that almost every county in Vermont has at least 3 optometrists, significantly greater numbers and more widespread than orthophthalmologists. You said that wrong. The committee also heard that OPR was not aware, this is important. The committee also heard that OPR was not aware of any malpractice or complaint data demonstrating that optometrists with advanced training have higher rates than ophthalmologists of errors, complications, or bad outcomes. Now I'm going to go through some of the sections of the bill, or all of them briefly. Section 1. This section amends the definition of practice of optometry to add a list of procedures that are within the scope of practice of an optometrist holding the advanced therapeutic procedures specialty established in Section 4, including certain surgeries, laser procedures, and injections. It also adds definitions of adverse event and therapeutic pharmaceutical agent. Section 2. This section would require that optometrists holding an advanced therapeutic procedure specialty complete an additional 5 hours of continuing education in advanced procedures during each 2-year licensure period, in addition to the 40 hours currently required for all optometrists. Section 3. This section prohibits an optometrist from performing an ophthalmic surgeries or injections procedures other than those listed in Section 1, and provides a list of 23 specific procedures or categories of procedures that optometrists are prohibited from performing as listed in this bill. It also prohibits an optometrist from prescribing or administering a Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substance, except for hydrocodone, as well as analgesics, such as an example as that would be Vicodin. Now, which it would be allowed for optometrists to prescribe or administer, but without refills, which is important, and for not more than a 72-hour period. Section 4. This section creates a new subchapter in the optometry chapter for the advanced therapeutic procedures specialty. It authorizes the Board of Optometry to grant the specialty to an applicant who is licensed to an optometrist, meets educational and demonstrated competency requirements, has completed specific examination requirements. Section 5. This section moves the only remaining section in 26 BSA, Chapter 30, Subchapter 5, into Subchapter 1 of that chapter, since Section 4 enacts the new subchapter as Subchapter 5. The effective date in this bill right here is the act would take effect on January 1, 2027, and we'll discuss that at a later point. At the end of the day, S64 is not about one profession versus another. It's about how we, as policymakers, ensure that Vermonters receive timely, high quality, and affordable care in a healthcare system under real strain. Vermont's healthcare future depends on providers working together, each practicing within clearly defined roles, strong oversight, and the shared goal of better patient outcomes. S64 reflects that approach. It does not replace collaboration. It strengthens it by reducing unnecessary delays, referrals, and handoffs that drive up costs and push care further from home. When patients can receive appropriate care from a qualified provider without waiting months or traveling hours, outcomes improve. When providers are able to practice to the full extent of their education and training within clear statutory limits, the system works more efficiently. And when care is delivered earlier and close to home, costs are contained for patients, families, and the system as a whole. This legislature has repeatedly said that access, affordability, and workforce sustainability must guide our healthcare decisions. It uses the workforce we already have. It preserves oversight and safety. This bill reflects a healthcare system that works better when professionals work together. Patients are at the center. The law keeps pace with education and clinical reality. Just want to say that I worked pretty hard on this bill, and I worked closely with OPR, and they're the ones in the middle. They're the ones that have to determine whether or not this legislation will harm someone or not harm someone. They're the ones that make those decisions. And we hold them to a very, very high regard in this Senate. And so with that being said, I sincerely hope that we pass S64. I urge you to support it. Thank you. Also, the vote was 3-2. And some of the witnesses we heard from were Jennifer Carby, to my left, Jen Cohen and Emily Carr from OPR, Matthew Greenberg, Vermont Board of Medical Practice, Jessica McNally of the Vermont Ophthalmological Society, Jeff Young, Christopher Brady, and Libby Houle, Diva Mera, an ophthalmology resident of the Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center, Alicia Feiss and Amy Puerto of the American Academy of Optometry, Daniel Phillips, Tina Kishaba, and Dean Barcelow of the Vermont Optometric Association, and Nate Leitsizer, Doctor of Optometry. And again, the vote was 3-2. Thank you, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from Chittenden North, Senator Matos, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance took a look at the S64 and the fees involved in S64, and what's involved here for optometrists is they'll still have their regular license, and then there'll be a specialty license that they have to apply for at OPR, and that's $100. So based on the projected uptake of the specialty license, the fees raised by the specialty license will be about $5,000. OPR spoke to the $100 specialty license fee as being sufficient for covering the cost for administering those licenses. And we heard from our legislative counsel, our joint fiscal office, and the Office of Professional Regulation. And on a vote of 7-0-0, we ask for the Senate's support.
I now recognize the senator from Franklin, Senator Norris, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. S-64 came to your Senate Appropriations Committee for review. And after taking a close look at this, we could not find any place within the bill that asked for any appropriations or needed any appropriations. The senator from Chittenden North stole half of my report here in reference to the licensing fee. So because there's no appropriations needed, I'm not going to be able to use the favorite term I like to use, is de minimis. So I can't use that term in this particular instance. So it came out of your Senate appropriations on a vote of 5-0-2. We ask for the Senate's support. Thank you.
I now recognize the senator from Orleans for an amendment to be considered, found on page 1120 of your calendar, as I understand it.
Thank you, Mr. President. So in the underlying bill as introduced under the page 13 of 13 at the bottom on 18, says this act shall take effect on January 1, 2027. OPR said that they wish they could push it back a few more months. And so that was so that they could give more time for rules and for IT setup and implementation. And so that's what drove this amendment, is because OPR requested it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did not take this amendment up in committee. However, it was in the testimony from the Office of Professional Regulation. So unless I hear a hue and cry from anyone on my committee, I think this is a good change. Thank you.
I hear no crying, so we will move on. The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by Senator Morley? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the bill as offered by the senator from Orleans. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of S-64, which modernizes the scope of practice for optometrists in Vermont. I want to thank the Senate Committee on Government Operations and the Committee on Health and Welfare for their diligent work on this bill. As a sponsor and as a senator representing rural Vermont, it is critically important to me that this legislation expands access to essential health care in every corner of our state. This bill will help Vermont, most importantly, increase access to all care for Vermonters, while also allowing us to be competitive when attracting new professionals. The impact on rural communities cannot be overstated. Today, a patient in a rural county may have to drive hours for a routine 5-minute laser procedure. Allowing local optometrists to perform these services removes unnecessary geographic barriers, reduces travel cost for families, and ensures that seniors can receive specialized eye treatment in the communities where they live. The Office of Professional Regulations has made clear that this expansion of scope is paired with rigorous educational and competency requirements to uphold the highest standards of patient safety. The bill clearly defines which procedures are permitted and includes a prohibited list to address concerns and provide clarity. We have long trusted the Office of Professional Regulations to safeguard the public, and their thorough report demonstrates that it is time to allow optometrists to practice to the full extent of their education and training. This is a tripartisan bill, such as the senator from Rutland, the senior senator from Rutland stated earlier. Many signatures on this bill. I urge my colleagues to support this, and I thank you.
Question is, shall the bill, Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I just want to echo a few of the things that my colleague from Franklin said. I was not originally supportive of this. When it was first proposed in around, when I remember it first being proposed, it may have been proposed before this, but it was around 2020. And that was when OPR came out with a report that was not recommending it. And I had concerns, as the senator from Franklin says. I also hold OPR to high standards and trust their recommendations. So I was not supportive of it. I met with a lot of optometrists and ophthalmologists and was like, I don't know, but it's come a long way. OPR has done another study, updated their recommendations, and Mr. President, more states have also moved in this direction. So we have the knowledge from how this has worked in other states, and I am very supportive. I'm a co-sponsor on this tripartisan bill, and urge the body to support it, and thank the two committees that worked on it. I've served on both of them as this has gone through in past years, and glad to see it come to the floor. Thank you.
Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I interrogate the reporter of the bill, please?
The reporter's interrogated.
I, as one, have a tremendous respect for OPR. I've got, I don't know how many licenses I've got there, way too many. And so the trust that I have in them always is great. Also, as a business owner of probably too many businesses as well, one of the deciding factors for me lots of times are what insurance companies have to say. I'm wondering if any of the optometrists or anyone had anything to say about the insurance companies having any worry about the scope of practice.
Yes, Mr. President, there was some discussion on that, and it didn't seem like it was a concern that prices were going to go sky high or lower for that matter.
I think the reporter of the bill. I will echo the comments from the senators that have already spoken as somebody in a very rural area, and relationships with the optometrists in our areas. I've got 3 of them that are in big support of this bill. I just like that when we can do the work locally, where my people don't have to travel large distances and have big delays as far as the type of treatment that they're looking for. Anytime that we can have that, as for me, is a big win. And for all of mine, I do have concerns about people messing with people's eyeballs. That's one of the reasons why I never got laser surgery, to be honest with myself. I just said, well, if there was one that was going to go wrong, well, I am the candidate. But I feel comfortable voting for this bill. I'm glad it came forward. I do appreciate the travel length that it went, and that actually gives me, I know lots of times it's like probably not the way people want, but the travel time of this bill and all the places that it went and all the discussions that it had and all the opposition, I even appreciated the opposition to this bill as well, because for the longest time I wasn't really sure whether I could vote for it or not. So I appreciate that this bill has made it to this point, and I like the tripartisanship, and I will be supporting this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. So that I can be clear-eyed on voting for this bill, I would like to inquire.
The presenter is interrogated.
And I have questions I can get the answers at third reading or when we're off the floor. But you mentioned other states. Also, the senator from Addison mentioned that there are many states. I don't know if you had a number. How many other states allow the optometrists to perform these procedures? And then another second question, I'll just ask them both at the same time, is you mentioned the report from OPR that they didn't see any differences in negative outcomes from these procedures. And I didn't know if that was a national study or just general malpractices between the two professions, or was it specifically about bad outcomes from when optometrists are performing these procedures?
So the first one, Mr. President, was there are currently 15 states that are allowing optometrists to do this. That's the first question. And secondly was what was the second one?
About the report that OPR did.
That one I'm not positive about. I think they looked across the country at that, but I'm not absolutely 100% positive, so I would wish that I could get the answer for the senator after second reading.
I thank the presenter, thank the president.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an unusual bill for our committee. Ordinarily, we like to have the bill come out with a majority of members at a 4-1 or 5-0 vote, and that's been consistent for us. This one is 3-2. It is controversial, there's no question about it. And Mr. President, right up front, I'm one of the two. So I'll share that with you. But I would also like to share, if I may, Mr. President, some testimony that we received from the chair of the Board of Medical Practice, who has experience in overseeing surgical practice, which is ophthalmology currently, and now the bill will extend surgery to optometrists, should it go through. So with your permission, I'd like to go through some data and some information that may help shine a light on some of the comments that have been made favorable, but will maybe offer alternative thoughts.
You may.
Thank you, Mr. President. So when the Board of Medical Practice completed its study in 23, it gave its report. The board unanimously, initially in 23, voted against supporting the expansion of this scope for optometry. Then it was revisited in January 25, last January, and no formal vote was taken, but remained at the Board of Medical Practice. But the report that came out from OPR was identical. There was no new evidence presented to encourage and to state that the sunrise should go forward. So I want that to be very clear. The original report is the same report that was used to put this bill in motion. So there are three primary current concerns that have come out from a look at this from current Board of Medical Practice. And by the way, the chair of the Board of Medical Practice at this time is currently the Commissioner of Health. So I have a great deal, and I will say right up front, a huge amount of respect both for OPR and for the Board of Medical Practice. The OPR found insufficient evidence that scope expansion would improve access. The OPR report found insufficient evidence that scope expansion would impact cost. The board had serious concerns. I'm talking about the Board of Medical Practice, understood. I understand there's a difference here between OPR and the board. The board had serious concerns that allowing optometrists who have significantly less surgical training than ophthalmologists to perform ocular surgery could lead to worse patient outcomes. Well, it's important to understand that there's a difference in training, even with the additional training that's included in the bill. It's significantly different. So a little bit about the expansion of what this would do to improve access. And I'm continuing on with the report from the Board of Medical Practice, as they have done research on this, and it balances out some of the comments that we've heard from others. There's little research evaluating whether expanding the scope of optometry improves access. A 2023 study published in the Journal of American Medical Association Ophthalmology evaluated the impact of optometrists performing laser procedures in states where this expansion has already occurred. The findings from that national study: despite optometrists performing up to 37.1% of certain laser procedures in Oklahoma, where there's a high concentration, there was no meaningful reduction in patient travel times. In some cases, patients actually had to travel further to reach an optometrist performing laser surgery than an ophthalmologist. The study concluded that expanding optometrist privileges had no measurable impact on increasing access to care. We know in our state, there's no identified shortage of ophthalmological services in our state. And as evidence of that, in 2020, the Eye Surgery Center in South Burlington submitted a certificate of need to the Green Mountain Care Board to expand services, which was denied because it was indicated that surgical services were already adequate. So we do have challenges in terms of optometric access, and Right now, we know, if looking at data that has come to us from our state, there are wait times for optometry access for routine optometric care. In Rutland alone, there's a 10-month wait period. So expanding the scope does nothing to address the real problem that Vermont lacks enough optometrists to meet current demand for routine care. It's an issue. We've heard about workforce issues. We know that that the only place in the state where we see a low number of optometrists is in Grand Isle and Essex County. So Essex County has a point. We need more optometrists. So we know there's a strong geographic distribution across the state for both professions. The question about will this expansion lower costs? The report that has come to us noted that ophthalmologists frequently find patients referred by optometrists for procedures are often better served by more conservative, non-surgical treatment. So we need to take care with what we're expanding. I know, actually, that happened to me. I went to my optometrist, who I value greatly and seek care on a regular basis. And he said, you should go to your ophthalmologist and see, do you need surgery? I did not need surgery. The optometrist I think, and suggested that he would have had surgery. I'm glad I didn't have it, because I don't like eye surgery. So, but I'll have it sooner or later. All of us will as we get older, I suppose. So having surgical solutions when they're not needed can add cost rather than to reduce cost. The OPR report's final observation on cost reference reviews from states that had expanded optometry scope, and these reviews either lacked cost data entirely or found no evidence that of the expansion on impacted costs. There is a lack of evidence here, and I know that as other states build their repertoire of specialist optometrists, we may see some of that. But in this state, we have very few of the complex procedures that are described in the bill. And we have ophthalmologists who currently take care of all those difficult surgeries. To spread those surgeries across a broader number of professions will result in a lack of repetition by those practitioners. Because what we hear is it's repetition that provides for safety and good patient outcomes. In the case of an ophthalmologist, when they're going through clinical training, they perform close to 500 different surgical procedures. And as we heard from the senator from Orleans, who did a very good job, thank you. I shouldn't have looked at him, I'm sorry. Optometrists use simulation, and we saw some of the simulations that they use, they're sort of models for surgery and injections. That's not the same as working on a human who has a medical history and a medical background, and it needs to be seen. We need to have folks seen clinically. There's also the concern about complications that was mentioned, and the lack of reported complications doesn't necessarily mean that complications are not occurring. It simply means that they may be underreported or misattributed. I won't go into that. I think that's something for another little research project. I would like to say that in 2016, there was a systematic review of articles of more than 180 studies, concluding that higher surgical volume is directly correlated with better patient outcomes. That means the more you do, the better you get, and the better your patients come out of that surgery. So, Mr. President, I would say in conclusion, expanding optometry surgical scope has not improved access in other states. Vermont has no demonstrated shortage of ophthalmological surgical coverage. Shifting surgeries to optometrists who receive less training than ophthalmologists, in particular clinical human training, that poses more of a risk for patient safety. The real issue Vermont faces is limited access to routine optometric care, not surgical care. Expanding scope won't solve the problem that we have in front of us. Mr. President, I'd like, if I might, read a very short comment from the governor of the state of New Mexico,
You may.
who vetoed this bill, a similar bill.
You may.
And if I might.
You may.
Thank you. The Honorable Javier Martinez sent to the Speaker of the House, talked from the Governor of Mexico. I am vetoing this bill because it sets a dangerous precedent for allowing non-surgeons to perform surgical procedures. When changes are made to the scope of practice for healthcare providers, there are two main considerations. First, whether the change in scope increases access to care for patients, and second, whether the change will ensure good medical care for patients. I do not feel that this bill adequately meets that threshold. Mr. President, I have no reservations that there are optometrists who we have in this state who might meet the criteria and have repetitive surgical experience to perform these within this scope. My concern is the expansion is huge. It's absolutely huge. Injections, multiple surgeries, and then part of the bill indicating that what can't be done, and we don't know what's outside of that can't be done. There may be other things we don't even know that we're approving. So, this is difficult for me, Mr. President, because I know that it sounds good. The people who came to us, who are optometrists, I talked with them out of session, during session. They're very good people. They're good practitioners in their area, but expanding scope at this time, when we don't have the data from other states that indicates increased access, when we don't have data that indicates errors and ongoing patient safety, that continues to be a concern. Mr. President, I voted no in committee, and I will continue to vote no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Orleans.
Yes, Mr. President. I think that OPR did a really good job vetting this bill. And safety is obviously of paramount of importance. And so I relied on them, and I think that they're the experts in this. I didn't do all that research. I listened and read reports. I also think that what have we been talking about in this body? It's called healthcare transformation. And you folks are going to hear a lot more about that coming up. And if we can't make this one small transformation in my opinion, in a safe environment, procedures that are done safely, that's well regulated, then I question whether or not we're going to be able to transform the healthcare system at all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden.
I will speak one more time, Mr. President. There is one tiny element that is not covered in the bill that I think it's important for us to understand. It does relate to patient safety. That is, should the bill go forward and we see a surgery performed that could be a complicated surgery, and there is a complication in the evening, suppose the patient goes home, most of this stuff is outpatient, go home and then have a problem later on. We didn't get a really good answer in committee about 24/7 coverage. So that would the optometrist be available Right now, ophthalmologists have peers who cover, and ophthalmologists and optometrists do cover each other. They work together well. But I didn't get a good sense that there would be coverage for the surgeries, and one of the comments that we heard in testimony was, well, probably the patient may have to go to the emergency department, and we're trying to avoid that. So it's a concern, it's a patient safety concern, lack of 24/7 coverage, and lack of acknowledgement within the process. So thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden Central.
Might I ask a hopefully quick question of the presenter of the bill?
The reporter is interrogated.
I'm wondering, we heard a lot about some of the things that didn't show a significant impact in other states. Was there anything that showed a significant increase in risk in the other states that have passed this, or increase in complications?
No, Mr. President, I don't believe that there was.
I thank the senator. As someone who's had a lifetime of eye stuff, I've been told in the current state of things when I've called the ophthalmologist to go to the emergency room. So that is already happening. I do support this bill and did not start there. So I appreciate getting to say a brief word.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windsor.
May I interrogate the reporter of the bill, please?
The reporter's interrogated.
Thank you. Mr. President, did the committee take testimony as to what an ophthalmologist costs an hour or by procedure and what an optometrist does? And if our objective is actually being reining in healthcare costs, did you take testimony about the cost differences between having an ophthalmologist do surgery versus an optometrist?
No, Mr. President, I don't recall that.
Okay, thank you. I'm probably the most blind person in this body, in this chamber, thank you. I've been involved with this bill from the beginning. We have reined in the procedures. This iteration has many fewer procedures than we initially looked at, I believe. You cannot get better at something if you're not allowed to practice it. So I look forward to our optometrists getting better and better at this. Those that are trained, that are able to do this now, have practiced in their medical training. I encourage us all to support this bill. The cost between an optometrist visit and an ophthalmologist visit is substantial. And for those of you who've spent as much time in both of their offices as I have, I encourage you to support this bill and we have to enable our optometrists to grow in their practice, and all of us as individuals need to grow in our work and our capability. So I encourage us to support this bill, reduce healthcare costs, and enable the optometrists to grow in their work as well. Thank you.
Senator, it sounded to me like you just proved that you knew the answer to the question you asked, which I think is a violation of rules, just to point out. Senator from Windsor.
I asked if they had taken testimony on it.
Okay. Are you ready for the question? If so, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you've ordered third reading of S64. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I promised, that was our last bill for the day. We will wind up gaveling out, I believe, right at 4, which I had said to people was a hard stop today. So that's great. The one thing before I make my motion, Mr. President, I just want to commend the way the discussion went forward today. We had a lot of amendments. For the most part, those went through the committee. We saw great work on the part of the committees to come toward the proposer of the amendments. So I especially want to congratulate the Committee on Natural Resources for the work they did getting closer to those proposers. The other thing I just want to mention, Mr. President, is, as I said, there is no notice calendar. We did not clear the calendar today, but one more longish session tomorrow will take us literally down to a clean calendar. That means we will start next week with some extra time for committees. So please do come prepared tomorrow for one last intense session, and then we'll go back to the more relaxed lawmaking we're used to. With that, Mr. President, I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until Friday at 11:30, March 27th, 2026.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm loath to say I'll try to make this brief, but I know we all want to go. I did want to make this announcement before tomorrow to give folks time to really think about this. I rise to make an announcement, Mr. President, as the chair of the ethics panel. I think now it's becoming more of a part of our public discourse that we have an increase in the number of ethics complaints that we receive. And we have not necessarily been able to get together lately. That all said, Mr. President, we also now have discrimination under our charge. And so what we end up, fielding are a lot of concerns about conflict that is highly unlikely to rise to the level of something that violates the law or violates our duties or our code of ethics. We as a panel have talked for a while about trying to have another session. And I say another one, but the last one last year was very informal. But having a session, and hopefully next week, I've spoken a little bit to the pro tem and the secretary, on the spectrum between decorum, discrimination, and ethics violations that we consider. And one of the things I just wanted to highlight is our last broad discussion of our duties as an ethics panel led us to really hear and understand and underscored by case law across the country that our speech is most heavily protected as legislators when we are exercising that freedom of speech on the floor. That is the time that our constituents see us do the work that they have sent us here to do in the light of day and in a way that, we are expecting ourselves to be seen and to be viewed and to be hopefully proud of our conduct. And while our speech is free and highly protected on the floor, that's also where our goal should be to hold each other accountable to a sense of decorum and what we want for our institution and our debate overall. So that's all I really wanted to say by way of background as we prepare for a session next week. We've had a tough week. We've talked a lot about the rules and decorum, unspoken rules that we follow. And if people want to jot down notes of things they have questions about or that they want to raise, we certainly welcome that, and we'll try to work with all of the committee chairs who I know have lost time in committee to make sure we do it at an appropriate time. But this is a lull in session. It's been a tough week. We have a lot of new folks, and I know new folks have been through a crossover and an end of session, but I think any veteran will tell you there's a difference when you're in the second year of the biennium between what that crossover and particularly that end of session tend to look like and feel like. So, this is to say nothing about the debates we've had this week, except a lot of questions have come up. I hope it's okay if I say that the secretary, these are the weeks he finds most interesting. Because we are doing the work our constituents asked us to do. We do raise the temperature because our constituents want to see our passion and want to see us fight for them. And we just want to make sure that that temperature stays tolerable for all of us. Thank you, and please look out for that announcement.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Rutland.
Mr. President, the Senate Government Operations Committee will not meet today.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate institutions, please stop by 5 minutes after the gavel. We may have folks there waiting for us.
Senator from Windsor.
Thank you. Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs will meet at 8:30 tomorrow morning. We have a number of amendments still to hear.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 11:30 a.m. Friday, March 27th, 2026. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will stand in adjournment until 11:30 a.m. Friday, March 27th, 2026.